यशोदानन्दन भज जननन्दन यमुना तीरा वनचारी Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kundri Hari Radha Kundri Hari Radhe. 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 Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhaja. Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhaja. Jaya Srinath Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Srinath Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika. Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Jai Ram Sankirtana ki Jai Prabhupada ki Jai Anantapurti Vaishnavrinda ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Santa Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Vikasindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Veshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to our Friday discussion. We'll be discussing chapter 14, verse number 6. Title of the chapter is
The three modes of material nature.
Three modes of material nature. And what are the three modes?
Goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Rajagun, Tamogun, and Sattvagun. Right? Okay. So, we've been talking, and Krishna established a couple verses prior that he is the seed-giving father of everyone. And our birth, our appearance in this world is due to the impregnation into the universe by the Supreme Lord of all of us as spirit souls. We don't come from matter. So matter is inert, it doesn't move, but it moves by the living force, the spirit soul. And that comes from Krishna. So he is our eternal Father. So we now understand that the material world has these three modes of nature, right? So, well, first of all, why are we here in the first place? Why? If Krishna is our eternal Father, and he's in the spiritual world, why aren't we with our Father?
Because we wanted to enjoy separately.
We wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. And why did we want to enjoy separate from Krishna? Due to what impurity? Enviness. You know, we said, Krishna, why you? Why not me? Right? Sometimes we ever say, when children, right? When there's something nice, and it says, why do you get it? Why don't I get it? New toy, some food stuff, some ice cream, something. And when there's some work to do in the house, why me? Why not him? Right? That's how we always have this. So like that, we had this reaction with Krishna. So he created this material world. And how is this material world created? What's the feature of the material world to try to fulfill our desire?
It's temporary, gives temporary happiness.
It's temporary. Yeah.
You have to deal with the distresses.
Why did he have to create the material world to fulfill our desire? So we wanted to be separate from Krishna, right? We said, I want to enjoy independent. So why did he have to create the material world then for that?
Give us that opportunity.
Okay, so how did he create the material world to give us that opportunity?
Covered with Maya.
It's covered with Maya. So there's an illusion, right? Why must there be an illusion? Why must there be Maya in the material world?
Because everything is Krishna's energy, so we cannot be without him. So he has to create an illusion.
So we have no separation from Krishna. We can never be separated from Krishna. Everything we interact with, whether it be matter or spirit, is Krishna's energies. And we know energy is non-different from the energetic, the source. Right? Can we say that the sunshine is different than the sun? No. But at the same time, you can say, oh, they're also different. Right? This is simultaneously one in difference. Right? So we can never be factually separated from Krishna. That's not possible. But to give off the appearance or the impression of what it might be like separated from Krishna, although it's not possible because we are part and parcel, we are fully dependent in every aspect of our life on Krishna. He has made this material world with a heavy, heavy illusion. Right? And the heavier the illusion, the more real the illusion seems, right? So a really good magician, they can make the impossible look like it's happening right in front of your eyes. Why? Because they're really good at creating a big illusion. So it is impossible to be separate from Krishna. And thus, Maya is there. So, the three modes of material nature, right? We go all the way back to the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What do the three modes do in the material world in a broad sense? What's their role in our presence here in the material world?
Fulfill our desires.
They fulfill our desires. Okay. How?
Like we desire something, and then in order for it to happen, Krishna will sanction it, and then Krishna doesn't directly deal with us. He has the modes of material nature, then do that particular desire or activity here.
Okay. So there are three, factors. There's actually 5, but in this summary, right? There's us as the jiva who expresses a desire. There's Krishna who sanctions it and who carries out the work. Modes of material nature, right? So we said this prakrute kriyamanani, right? Prakrute, this nature, is the doer. But because of our ahankara, we think kartahamiti manite, I am the doer, right? But I'm not the doer. So the modes of material nature, they carry out all of the activities. So when I move my hand like this, who's moving the hand?
The three modes of material nature.
The modes of material nature, right? Who's triggering the chemicals in the brain to trigger the nervous system to move the hand? It's all happening by the modes of material nature. I desire to move my hand. Krishna says this person's qualified to move their hand, this person's not. For this person, the hand will move. Right? So that's the three modes of material nature. So it is the doer in the material world. And under whose direction do the three modes operate? Krishna's. Not ours. Understand? Not our direction. But it is under the direction of Krishna. Right? So each of the three modes, they serve as a way to bind us to this material world. They bind us to the material world. So we say three gunas. Guna means quality. It also means rope. So like a rope ties this giant steamship, right? You have a giant ship, and one rope this big can hold the whole steamship in place. This is very strong. Right? So these modes are also very, very strong. But they're subtle. Do we see them? If I look around, do I see the modes? No. And there is the problem. We don't see how the modes of material nature are acting upon us. Right? Just like, if we see the germs in the disease, there they are. Okay, we go this way. The problem is we don't see them. So we become susceptible to them. So we can feel the effect of it though. When the cold germ enters our body, we feel the effect, right? But we didn't see when it actually came upon us. So like that, the modes of material nature, we cannot see them, but we can very clearly see the effect of them, right? So in these subtle topics, subtle meaning things I can't touch, feel, put my hands on, we understand them by their effect. I have a cell phone here, right? I don't see the cellular tower where it is. I don't see it. But when I dial the phone and it connects, I know it's connecting to that cellular tower, wherever it is, right? But by the effect of it, phone connecting, I know it's somewhere here. Now that's a tangible item, but the signal being sent from here to there, I don't see the signal being sent, but I know it's happening by the effect, right? So similarly, now as we explore these three modes of material nature, we're going to focus on the effects on us, but we should understand that there is a tangible impact to us that's binding us, but it's subtle, so we don't see it, but we'll feel it. So that is important, because just like a disease, if it's dangerous because you can't see it, right? But if you know how it affects you and how it enters your body, then you can protect against it from happening, even if you can't see it. Okay? So similarly, these modes, we're going to understand each of the modes and how they capture us. And they keep us bound to the material world. We are bound to the material world not by gravity. It's not like I can just break through the atmosphere and get to free of gravitational force and then I'm free. No, we're not bound to the material world by gravity. We're bound to the material world by these three gunas, these three ropes. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and ignorance. And of course, Krishna is going to tell us at the end of this chapter how to break free from these three modes. But first, we're going to understand each of them and how they bind us to the material world. And then we're going to understand the nature of the person in each of these three modes. And then we'll understand the activities in the three modes. And from there, then we can see how to move from the lower modes to the higher modes and ultimately transcend. Okay? That's why we're going to study these in detail. So let's read verse number 6.
Tatta sattvam nirmalatvat papasakam maramalam sukha sangena padnati jnana sangena sanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness being purer than the other is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. Purpose. The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these types of psychological manifestations are causes of the entities, conditions, status, and nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad Gita. The mode of goodness is first compared. The effect of developing the mode of goodness in this material world is that one becomes wiser than the others, otherwise conditioned. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material misery, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahmana, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. This sense of happiness is due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than the others.
In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best examples are the scientist and the philosopher. Each is very proud of his knowledge, and because they generally improve their living conditions, they feel a sort of material happiness. This sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. As such, they are attracted toward working in the mode of goodness, and as long as they have an attraction for working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. Thus, there is no likelihood of liberation or of being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusion of material energy, one thinks that that sort of life is pleasant.
Okay. So, O sinless one, the mode of goodness being purer than the others is illuminated, and it becomes free from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So, Krishna refers to Arjuna here as Anaga, O sinless one, right? He's reminding Arjuna, don't worry, you are not conditioned by the modes. You are transcendental to the modes, right? Why is Arjuna beyond the modes? Isn't Arjuna in the mode of goodness? He's doing devotional service. No? No? Why not?
Because the mode of goodness is still material and devotional service is like spiritual.
Very, 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 very critical distinction. Bhakti, service to Krishna, is transcendental. It is beyond the modes. Modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are all material activities. Material means on the platform of body. So we're going to see a hierarchy of modes, but all of them are subordinate, inferior to the spiritual activities of devotional service, which is in the mode of pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. So this mode of goodness we're discussing is still going to be tinged with modes of passion and ignorance. So one can be primarily in the mode of goodness, but still have tinges of passion and ignorance. When one is actually purely in goodness, they transcend the Shuddha Sattva. And that is in the realm of devotional service, okay? So we're going to keep this very clear, because sometimes we think, oh, I'm doing activities in the mode of goodness, I'm chanting my japa, I'm going to temple, doing service. That is not in the mode of goodness, that is in the mode of attempting pure goodness, okay? Okay, so Prabhupada says, one is happy, one is active, and one is helpless, in the second line of the purport. What is that describing?
Goodness, passion, and
Yes, the three modes. Goodness, passion, and ignorance, right? So, when we say the living entities are conditioned by the material nature, what does that mean, conditioned?
Covered by the material world.
Covered by that material nature, right? And that binds us. The conditioning is, it binds us. It's a chain, a rope that keeps us in the material world. Okay? So this is important that we understand. Now, how does the mode of goodness keep us stuck in the material world? How does the mode of passion keep us stuck in the material world? And how does the mode of ignorance, right? So all three we know, they bind us. Does the mode of goodness liberate one? Does one achieve a liberation from the mode of goodness? They do? No. Why not?
Because it's material.
Because it's material. It's still on the platform of
body.
the body. The body doesn't get liberated. What gets liberated?
The soul.
The soul. And what is the meaning of moksha, liberation? We talk so much about moksha. What is the meaning of moksha?
You will get out of the cycle of birth and death.
It means to be free from the modes of material nature. Liberated from the modes of material nature. That is the meaning of moksha, liberation. As I've said many times, liberation is not a geographical point. It is free. So one can be liberated even within the material world. Free from the modes. As soon as one becomes free from the influence of the three modes of material nature, they are liberated. It can happen in the next instant based on our desire. Right? So that is liberation, to be free from. So the mode of goodness is also bondage, binding us. So when we say conditioned, it means it keeps us tied to the material world. Okay? So this we have to understand very clearly, how each mode ties us to the material world. Now, what is the two features of the mode of goodness that keeps us in the material world? What is the first one that Krishna says?
Knowledge,
Knowledge.
happiness, and
Happiness and knowledge, right? So let's take knowledge first. What knowledge does one in the mode of goodness have? Nuclear physics, astronomy, biochemistry, computer engineering? What knowledge does one in the mode of goodness possess? Pure devotional service?
knowledge of the soul.
Knowledge of?
Soul.
What do they know about the soul?
That body and the soul are different. They are not the body.
Okay.
That's it.
And if they have knowledge of that they are different from the body,
They don't much involved in the material dualities. Like
okay.
they're not much affected by the dualities.
Okay, so if that was the case, then why would the mode of goodness be binding to the material world?
Because of the happiness thing, they're not much involved in the worldly duties, the bodily duties. Might be because of that they get that happiness and they're bound by that happiness.
Okay. Any other ideas?
They're advanced, they feel like they're advanced in material knowledge, so that's their source of happiness.
Okay. So we're going to talk about how the knowledge is linked to happiness. Knowledge, happiness that comes from knowing I am not this body and I am spirit soul is what type of knowledge?
Transcendental.
That's
It is transcendental knowledge, right? Krishna said in the 4th chapter, that is transcendental knowledge. When one knows how to find that happiness from within meaning not from my belly or my liver or my kid, from the soul within this body. Not looking at happiness on a bodily platform. But in the mode of goodness, where is the happiness coming from? For one in the mode of goodness. From soul or from body?
Body.
Body. It's coming from the body because it's material. As soon as it comes from soul, it becomes this devotional service, transcendental. Right? The soul only gets happiness in its relationship with Krishna. Right? So what knowledge does one in the mode of goodness have? Biochemistry? This is a struggling concept, so we're going to make this very clear.
About the higher powers.
Huh?
About the higher powers, because they know about the Vedas.
They know about the Vedas. And what aspect of the Vedas do they know?
The karma kanda.
The karma kanda processes of the Vedas. And what do the karma kanda processes teach?
How to get
You do this, you get material happiness.
from demigods.
How to get
Sacrifices.
material happiness. Do you get bhakti in karma kanda?
No.
You get material happiness. 100%. And that all comes from where? Vedas. So we have to make sure we understand. Just because I follow the Vedas doesn't make me transcendental to the modes. And also, they are working for the body, not for the soul. Even if their desires for next life elevating, they believe in the soul, but they're looking for bodily happiness, material happiness. Understand? They may understand that the soul is there, but they see it as a vehicle to enjoy the body. Right? And we have, because Prabhupada says, there is no likelihood of liberation or being transferred to the spiritual world for one in the mode of goodness. So the knowledge that they have is of these different Vedic sacrifices in the karma kanda process. Right? And what other knowledge do they have? We have the do's, but we also need the don'ts. Because what if we pursue the don't activities, what happens?
No sinful reactions.
We get sinful reactions if we perform any of the don'ts. But are the don'ts defined by the laws of the United States of America, or by the state of Michigan, or the city of Troy? Whose laws ultimately do we have to answer to? Krishna's laws. So one in the mode of goodness knows what is pious and what is sinful. Understand? They know what is pious and what is sinful. So now, how does that knowledge lead to happiness for those in the mode of goodness?
If they don't get any sinful reactions, they are more happy.
They don't get any sinful reactions, so they are more happy. Because they are enjoying all of the material facilities of life. Right? So that knowledge they have gives them a relative happiness. So wait a minute. Doesn't that sound like perfection? We got our happiness. We have our happiness that I'm not doing any sinful activities. I'm only doing pious activities that are in the Vedas. So isn't that the perfect state? Why would Krishna say that they're now bound by this mode then? What's wrong with that achievement?
Still have to come back, and you're bound by the good karma, so you still have to, you're not going to be free from it. You're still going to have to come back and deal with the reactions of that.
Okay. So you still have reactions of the karma, but I'm going to get good reactions. I'm going to get happiness, no?
It's temporary.
It's temporary. Okay. And what else? It's temporary and? Huh? So, the happiness from the mode of goodness, right? Can we agree there's happiness in the mode of goodness? Krishna says it is. Right? So there's happiness. Now, there's happiness in the mode of goodness relative to who? Relative to what other people?
Passion and
People in the mode of passion and ignorance. Why does one in the mode of goodness have more happiness than in the mode of passion and ignorance?
Because they're committing less sins.
They're committing less sinful activities and they're doing more pious activities. Both, right? So they have more happiness than those in the mode of passion and ignorance. But on an absolute level, when you look at all living entities, do they have the most happiness then? Yeah? Comparatively to who?
One's in passion and ignorance.
Ignorant. So is everybody in one of those three modes? Every living entity?
Not
not
less than.
deliberated.
Not the liberated souls. Here lies the issue. The one in the mode of goodness, they're saying, hey, I have more happiness than that in the mode of ignorance, that in the mode of passion, so I'm good. So there's a sense of happiness that's better than anyone else they see. But what they're not seeing is what is the happiness of those in the spiritual world, the liberated soul. So they're comparing to the other conditioned souls. But they have not seen what is the happiness of the liberated souls. This is just like a prisoner who is staying in the prison house. They are in the A-class jail cell. They say, hey, my cell is bigger than the B class and the C class. My cell has a TV, nobody else does. I get 2 hours of freedom each day in the yard. No, they only get less. Now, if a prisoner is sitting there saying, I have the best of what one can achieve in life, what would we say to that prisoner? We would almost laugh, right? Why we would laugh?
Because prison is not good.
Because prison is not even real life. Like, they don't even know happiness begins when you're out of prison. Right?
Yeah.
They're only looking inside the four walls. And so the prisoner in the A-class makes no endeavor to get out. And if a prisoner was situated like that, we would think, wow, what a foolish person. Right? But on the inside, like, no, they've done a lot of hard work to get to the A-class. But in the full perspective, they're completely missing real life, which is outside the prison. So one in the mode of goodness has great knowledge about the material world. and how best to use the material world. It's like a prisoner who knows how to make the best within a prison. But one in the mode of goodness hasn't yet understood how to achieve real happiness. So yes, they may have more happiness in passion and ignorance, but how does the happiness in the mode of goodness compare to the happiness in the mode of pure goodness? Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, if you took all the happiness of the material world and you combined it all together, everything you could do in the mode of goodness, and you added it all up, it would amount to the amount of water that can be captured within the hoof print, not of a cow, of a calf. Now, this cup of water is here, right? How many hoof prints could this fill? 8, 9, 10? So that's it, all the happiness in the material world. Okay, that's great, but now we need to know one other side. What's the other thing we need to know?
The happiness of the liberated.
What's the happiness of bhakti? Is it less than this? Is it the amount of water contained within the imprint of an ant? Or is it something? So Rupa Goswami says, how much happiness is in bhakti?
Ocean.
An ocean. Bhakti, Rasamrita, Sindhu. An ocean of rasa exists with bhakti. How many footprints can you fill with an ocean of water? I'm going to do your math. We can't even calculate. So the amount of happiness in devotional service, it doesn't even compare. Just like, how does the happiness in the A-class jail cell compare to happiness in the free world? Right? So one in the mode of goodness, the problem is how they become conditioned by the relative sense of happiness. Relative to the modes of passion and ignorance, but they're not seeing relative to devotional service. So when one has this knowledge of how to operate the material world to get good pious credits and to avoid sinful credits and to achieve the best happiness in the material world, what happens to them? What is their consciousness? What is their goal?
To get more.
Try to enjoy this body more. They make no attempt to go further, to get beyond. So what binds them is because of their relative happiness, they make no attempt to go any further. I've studied the Vedas. They tell me do this sacrifice for this happiness, do this sacrifice for that happiness. But what did Krishna tell Arjuna to do with the Vedas, specifically the karma kanda processes of the Vedas? What did he tell him to do?
Transcend.
Go beyond them. Ignore them. He said in the second chapter, the Vedas, not for you. Right? Krishna speaks somewhat disparagingly. Right? The flowery words of the Vedas, he says. Right? Wait a minute. Who is the author of the Vedas? Krishna is! So he's not speaking out of envy, criticizing somebody else's work, right? He's speaking about his own work. He's saying, Arjuna, go beyond the Vedas. There's so much more beyond the mode of goodness that one can achieve. And that is on the platform of the soul. And that's why he says, Sarva Dharma Parityaja. Abandon all other dharma. Even this dharma I have given. I have created it. But you should move beyond it. Because why do you want to swim in the hoof print of a calf when you can swim in an ocean? Why? Only way you would do it if you don't know about the ocean. So the one in the mode of goodness, they're proud of their knowledge. When you become proud of your knowledge, you stop acquiring more. So always think mode of goodness, A-class jail cell, blind to the outside world, and thus no attempt to get out. And that's what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that they have no hope. He says there's no likelihood of liberation. And we see the demigods. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful chapter where the demigods are praying. And we should go to the material world, to the earthly planet. Why? Because being in all this opulence in the heavenly planets, we are fooled to think we have actually achieved something. Here, the mood of devotion, bhakti, doesn't manifest. Because we are blinded by our opulence. So better we go to the earthly planet. We descend, and there we can take devotional service. So that is the mood when they see, wow, these great personalities are going back to the spiritual world. They're watching devotees in the celestial airplanes going beyond them, beyond their view, thinking, wow, we don't have it. So this is the mode of goodness. It is binding. I think I got it all. I know it all. And I've got the best happiness. But I'm only looking inside, not comparing to devotional service. Okay? So that's what binds us. So next week we'll talk about the mode of passion, which binds one by activity. I'm so busy trying to satisfy my material desires, I have no time for Krishna consciousness. I have no time for Bhakti Vriksha. I have, no more space in my schedule because I'm so busy. That's the devotion. That's mode of passion. So we'll discuss that next week. Okay. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, what mode is in that where you're almost you're on the runway and
That's the mode of goodness.
you can take, if once you're on the runway you will take off
So
or no?
Krishna's going to say that, we should come to the mode of goodness from wherever we may be, so that from there we can transcend. So Prabhupada compares it to a runway. A plane can't take off from the gate, but once it reaches the runway, it can transcend. But a plane, once it reaches the runway, doesn't stay on the runway. So some say, I'm in a mode of goodness, I'm good. The only point of coming to the mode of goodness is to transcend, not to stay there. Because what's the risk of staying in the mode of goodness? Huh?
You fall back down.
What?
You fall back down.
You fall back down. And why might you fall back down?
Because we are always operated by mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Because we're tempted.
No.
Association. We can become tempted and do some bad activity. And the other thing is, even if you stayed in a mode of goodness, still you have death, old age, disease. How much anxiety the devatas are in. Always fighting with the asuras. This eternal battle. Who's taking whose kingdom? Constantly they are going and praying to Lord Brahma, to Lord Vishnu, save us, save us, save us. There's anxiety, stress, fear, even in the mode of goodness. But there's a high possibility that you will fall from the mode of goodness to the lower modes again, due to the temptations and the illusions of Maya. So it is not a secure place. Just as it's not a secure to stay on the runway. You might get hit from a landing plane. You must go there and take off. So that's the mode of goodness.
So then the Suddha Sattva stage is like taken off already? Is that
Yeah, it's
Kind
pure
of
goodness. It's beyond the
pure
modes.
so that means your plane took off?
See, this is the three modes of material nature. 1, 2,
Right.
3, right?
Right.
Who's standing above the modes?
Krishna.
So if you're going to talk to Krishna, you're by definition already beyond the modes. Krishna doesn't descend to the modes. He may descend to the material world, but he doesn't become conditioned by the modes. Remember, you can be within the material world and be free of the modes. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our Guru Prabhupada, they come to the material world to perform some activity, but they're not conditioned by the modes. So, as soon as you are talking to, you're beyond the modes. You're transcendent. When we say transcend, we talk about elevating. So this picture shows us north-south. Make sense?
Oh, so a liberated person, right? But if they're a liberated person within the material world, like, you know, and they're in that Suddha Sattva stage, can they fall down?
My devotee never perishes. Arjuna, you declare it boldly. But we have to be careful. We should have a healthy amount of fear that we don't fall back into the modes. We should pray. Prabhupada said, I can't fall down. So I am praying for that. If we think, I'm free now, I'm good. Maya, never underestimate the power of Maya.
Go ahead, Mataji. Thank you.
So, if everybody has to come to the mode of goodness, then it takes time to come to devotional service, right, Prabhu? So it's wherever they are, that's what being heard and understood. Wherever they are, Vaishyas, Sudra, or any dog eater or Chandala, they can take up the devotional service directly. But why it is said that they have to come to mode of goodness and then take off?
They don't have to.
They don't have to.
No. We have proof and living example. Who was Srila Prabhupada preaching to? And what were their activities? What were their activities? It gets specific.
Sex,
Illicit
drugs,
sex, drugs,
intoxication,
intoxication, and
meat eating.
gambling. Not so much. They didn't have any money.
I'm sure they were meat eaters.
Meat eating. What else? They did nothing. They were hippies, right? They had detached from the working world, right? How long it took them to become pure devotees? That's the power of the pure devotee. That's the power of Guru. Right? So the heart can be transformed very quickly. We may be conditioned by the modes for millions of lifetimes. But sadhu sangha, sarva shastra. Lava matra sangha, sarva siddhihar. All the siddhis, all the powers. And how long it takes? How much association? Lava matra. A millisecond. 1/12 of a second to be specific. 1/12 of a second association with the pure devotee of the Lord. All the powers can be achieved.
So it is not mandatory to come to the mode of goodness.
Oh, one comes immediate from ignorance, passion, goodness, all the Shuddha Sattva. How long it takes us is up to us. It is not you must do 2 years here, 6 years here, 8 years here. How intense is our desire? Right? There are rare instances of liberation from animal form. Right? Gajendra the elephant. Right? Rare. It happens. So if we're not ready to surrender to Krishna yet, get ready. But in the interim, at least bring your activities to the mode of goodness. Don't think I have to come to the mode of goodness before I can take the bhakti. No. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. Krishna said, Anyone can offer me a leaf, fruit, flower, or water, even a dog eater. Right? But it must be yome bhaktya prayachiti, with love and devotion. But for those who are not ready, at least come to the mode of goodness. From there, due to some sukriti, and we see it, right? When we are sharing this knowledge, those who are very pious, who have strong mode of goodness, they very quickly can take the devotional service. You see it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's we have very live examples, right? So
The A class prison people, they compare with the B class and C class because that's what they see.
that's what they see.
And since they have not seen the outside people, they are not able to have that goal that that there is more happiness and I have to achieve that. So,
And that's the whole world, right?
so
Nobody is looking to see, wait a minute. Okay, let me just make the best use of this bargain I have. And that's ignorance, right? We don't have knowledge. We're missing knowledge. That's why we say it's in ignorance. When one has knowledge, then wait a minute, there's this greater opportunity, then of course one will aspire for it. But without taking to Shravanam, hearing. Because I can't see it, I can't look at my telescope and find the spiritual world to see how they're enjoying it. I have to hear Shabda Praman.
and to know about that opportunity, to know about that more higher happiness is there, to come to know that also we need Krishna's mercy.
Sarvasya Chaham Ridishani Visto Matashpatir Ganam Upanamcha. He's sitting in our heart. And if we have a desire to know more, he's there as Paramatma. He says, my external representative, the Guru, will come and guide you and instruct you. And when you become Tesham Satatam Yuktanam, right? When you're fully immersed in devotional service, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. I'm going to give you knowledge. Right? And what that knowledge can do? Come to him. So yeah, Krishna and Guru will give that knowledge.
So that inspiration, Paramatma has to give that inspiration, right, Prabhu? So that one, it comes to all the living entities, Prabhu.
Paramatma's constantly trying to inspire. But we are saying, shh, I'm good. So we have to desire. We have to desire. Now, what the devotee does, the devotee sees people, they'll never desire. So I'll help them create the desire. And they go out and they propagate and they spread and they take this knowledge to every town and village. Because that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood. Lord Nityananda, he would beg the houses, please chant, please chant, please chant. He wasn't waiting, okay, I have this program, if you have desire, come to it. No, what did he do? He went out door to door. He wasn't waiting for the living entity to express their desire. So the devotee, the preaching mood, the propagation mood, is to create the desire in all of our friends and neighbors and family members so that they can take to this process. So yes, if they're not going to do it on their own, we'll engage them in some devotional service, some agnata sukriti, even unknowingly. And unknowingly, by that, Satyavata, King Satyavata was, took Matsya avatar in a pot, and he got some, unknowing devotional service, and from there he became one of the Manus. Right? So the power, even unknowing devotional service. Ajamil, unknowingly calling Narayan. Right? So the devotee tries to engage every living entity in some devotional service so that the desire will manifest in their heart. They bring that Agnata Sukriti to each and every living entity.
So right now, if we see everyone, so that desire is all, not desire, the inspiration, Paramatma is giving that inspiration from inside for everyone. It's just that they are ignoring. Is that what happening? I'm just comparing
Yeah.
5 years back.
Yeah, I
what
mean,
was happening to me?
remember it when I say Paramatma is speaking to us, and we're saying that's a little bit, tongue in cheek, a little bit. The better way to think about it is, the two birds on the tree, right? That we see from our Shastra that Prabhupada quotes all the time. That one bird is busy eating the fruits of the tree, and what is the other bird doing? Just waiting and watching. That is Paramatma. And as soon as that bird becomes tired of eating the fruits of the material world, who is ready to instruct? Paramatma. So Paramatma doesn't interfere with our free will. But we have to pray, Krishna, please take my free will. I surrender it to you because I'm not good with my free will. I am not good with it. And if I do that, that's surrender. Right? So
I'm done with this material things, right? I'm not getting any taste in this material things. When that consciousness comes in any living entity, then the Paramatma will inspire them more, right?
By constantly banging our heads against the wall, and eventually, you know what? I should probably stop banging my head against the wall. Oh, really? And then knowledge comes. But until we're convinced that this material world is a place of, basically false, we'll keep turning over stones in the material world trying to find that perfect life. That won't happen. But we have to be convinced of it. Right? And then Krishna's there to take over. He desperately wants us back. But he won't interfere with our free will. But as soon as we want it, he makes all the arrangements. Look how many arrangements we have for us to be back to the spiritual world. We're using all this technology. We can hear from class. We can read. On one phone, you can have the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna book, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Shri Upanishad, Nectar, Devotion. How Krishna has given the intelligence to create all these facilities. But if we use them to propagate our journey back home, they can be very powerful. But if we use them to propagate our sense enjoyment, they can maybe equally powerful in a destructive way. Okay? You have any questions? Yes?
Yeah, there's a question online from the Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu, when Lord says that mode of goodness frees one from sinful reactions, one, does it mean the person will not create more karma to be in this mode and only burns his past karmas?
No, that's a good point. So, in the mode of goodness, you are creating new karmas, but you're creating good, pious karmas. So, you're not burning any karma. Burning karma happens only in devotional service. So, but you are avoiding the sinful activity because you have knowledge. Hey, I shouldn't eat this animal because it's sinful. Right? So I am accumulating good karma through all my activities because I'm not working for Krishna. All karma happens, meaning no karma in my activities, when I work for Krishna. What is action? In inaction. Right? In inaction. Krishna has explained. Difficult to understand, but the wise know it. So, mode of goodness, you're still creating karma, but you're creating good karma. But in the end, good karma and bad karma is bad. Because they both keep you bound to the material world. So the only benefit of mode of goodness activities is it's better than ignorance and passion because I'm avoiding sinful life. But in the grand scheme of things, it's all bad. because it keeps him bound to the material world, which is dukkhalayam and shashvatam. And the problem is that you may be fixed in mode of goodness today, but due to the illusory energy, Maya, it's virtually guaranteed you will, succumb to the lower modes. Temptations, right? We see even great munis, how they have fallen from their meditations, right? We have so many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam of great, powerful personalities who become tempted. But who was not tempted? Haridas Thakur. Because he was tasting the ocean rasa. What is a little hoof print of rasa going to be for him? In an ocean of rasa. No temptation. So the problem with the mode of goodness is you're more than likely to fall back. And again, in the mode of good, even if you're going to be fixed in the mode of goodness, what is the value of having a permanent life in an A-class jail cell? What is the value? Nothing. You've achieved nothing. You don't belong in jail. You belong in the spiritual world. We are spirit soul. We have this wonderful, loving relationship with Krishna. So this fascination with, mode of goodness, it's not too bad. Who says, I'm in the best jail cell, not too bad, I've done pretty well in this life? No. Anyone in jail, we know. All right, we've failed in society. Now we have to correct and get back to real life. So don't think mode of goodness is good. Yes, it's good relative. But it's still flawed. Severely, not a little bit. Krishna says, from the highest planet in the material world to the lowest is full of misery. In 8th chapter, why he says that? Don't be tempted by the mode of goodness. Don't think, heavenly planets, Soma Rasa, Nandana gardens, celestial airplanes. No, it's all prison. All misery. Dukkhalayam, house full of misery, dukkha, everywhere. Top, middle, and bottom. So mode of goodness is not good for us. That's the leaving statement. Mode of goodness is not good for us.
It sounds like because the bondage group.
It's worse. At least in ignorance and passion, maybe you'll become so fallen that you'll think, okay, I need out. Actually, goodness can be very problematic. Because, hey, life is good. What's the worry? Because I have good looks, I have good wealth, I have good health, I have good family, I'm having, in some ways it's the worst. That's what the demigods are saying. Right? They're saying in that mode, bhakti can't manifest. Better we come to the lower situation. And that's why Krishna says, plug your ears if you don't want to hear. What? If he really loves you, what does he do?
Takes away.
All your opulences. The first blessing he says takes away the opulence. But he only does so if he thinks we cannot manage those opulences. If they become an obstacle to our bhakti, he removes those opulences. So, but mode of goodness is not, we have to, think, I'm still a beginner devotee. No, you're a sadhaka on the platform of attempting to come to pure goodness. But transcend the modes. Mode of goodness, A-class jail cell.
So when they say Vaishyas are in the mode of passion and goodness, right? And stuff, so all the different varnas, right? Have the different modes. So being in those modes helps them to keep rising up. Would they rise from those?
Yes, but
Or is
Again,
that different?
in Daivi Varnashram, every mode, every ashram and varna can be in Shuddha Shattva. Okay, so one doesn't need to change ashram to elevate. Any more questions?
There's one more question here. Does it mean
I promise I won't yell this time.
does it mean until he burns his karma, he will not be able to transcend from this material world? So that's the second part of that question. But
Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. Krishna says, I will take all of your sinful reactions. Ma suchaha, do not fear. So yes, if you have any reactions in your account, you have to come back and take them. Who's going to take them? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we have to take them, which means another body. But Krishna says, if you surrender unto me, I will take all of your reactions. So we don't have to burn them. Why? Because Krishna is going to take them. Anybody want to sign up for that program?
Yeah.
All of us. Right? He takes all of our reactions. But when he takes our reaction, when we take initiation, Guru takes all our sins. But we have to be extremely careful not to create more. New ones. So yes, you have to burn all your sins in order to leave this material world. But Krishna is saying, I have a giant fire. I'll throw all your sins into it. I'll take them all. Ma suchaha, do not fear. That's how loving and how anxious Krishna is to bring us back.
So, in this mode of goodness people, how much knowledge of the soul they have?
Very limited. They have knowledge of the soul in its, the aspect of reincarnation and being able to go up to the higher heavenly planets through the different karma kanda processes, but they don't understand the soul's relationship with the Supreme. That the soul's nature is service to Krishna. Right? So they understand, because in order to aspire for the heavenly planets, you have to have some consciousness of soul. Right? Because I know this body isn't going to the heavenly planets. Right? So there's an understanding of next life, reincarnation. Reincarnation immediately implies soul. But it doesn't mean I know what is the nature of my soul, where does the soul get its happiness, what is the relationship with everything around me and with the Supreme, who is the Supreme, all of that is still missing.
So actually it was a little bit confusing for me. The Bhagavad Brahmana comes, right, Prabhu? Brahmana ashram. Brahmanas are mainly like they study Vedas and they know Brahman, and they mostly they are like kind of renounced.
It depends on the type. Most of the Brahmanas are the Smarta Brahmanas who are in Karma Kanda process, Karma Kanda.
From the beginning of the creation, Prabhu, is it like that?
No, I mean, in their prior yugas, the Brahmanas were more devotional.
Devotional, right?
Yeah. But a Brahmana, that's why a Vaishnava who knows Krishna, who's serving Krishna, transcends the Brahmana. But the Brahmana who knows Krishna is also a Vaishnava. Right? So the Vaishnava is beyond any of the, because remember, Varnashram is a material system. Perfecting Varnashram Dharma without bhakti has no value. That's in Srimad Bhagavatam. Repeatedly. You can perfect Varnashram Dharma, but if it doesn't come to bhakti, you have achieved nothing, it says actually. Nothing. Right? Because ultimately you're still within this house of misery. So what have you achieved? You got to the A-class jail cell. What have you really achieved?
Because when we think of Brahmanas, like from the scriptures and the Brahmanas, they don't work, right? They get
They're supported.
Vivegans and they teach Vedas. So mostly their life is like not materially opulent. They are like mostly
Yeah.
in the opulence way. They are very
Yeah,
low estate.
material
Right?
opulence,
So
yeah.
that's when it got confused because they are not working for. They know the Vedas. They know all the process how to get the material wealth, happiness, everything, but they don't do it right.
Yeah, but they teach dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But moksha they leave out mostly. You know, so they teach religion for the purpose of basically artha and kama, wealth and sense enjoyment. Right? But brahmanas who teach about who is spirit soul and who you are, they're top first class brahmanas. First class. So there are many first class brahmanas, right? But if you see a brahmana, it doesn't necessarily indicate that they have achieved the transcending the mode of goodness. That's the distinction. So not all brahmanas have, but some have.
So there are different grades of Brahmana.
You know. Just like in anything, there's different grades. But remember, the brahmana is part of our Varnashram dharma, which is a material system. Bhakti transcends that. That's why the Vaishnava transcends, is beyond the brahmana. Higher, much higher. That's in all of the scriptures.
So when Brahmanas does bhakti, they become Vaishnava.
Yes.
Anybody, any
Yeah.
else.
And brahmana is not by birth. It's by qualifications. That's why we say the twice born. First born in a brahmana family, but then initiated. Twice born, not once born. Otherwise you're Dvija Bandhu, the friend of the brahmanas. It's a little bit of a derogatory term.
Friend of the
You just know some, but you're not one. So it's a little derogatory. But it must be twice born. And Narada Muni explains all this in the 7th canto, where Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking about ideal life, ideal family life, and how to find perfection in the 4 ashrams. And so Narada Muni is describing in detail the different ashrams, the Brahman ashram, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and also the Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. But in devotional service, we transcend it all. So are we aspiring for a mode of goodness? No. If you are, you're aspiring for an A class shelsa. Yes, if you're in a B class or C class, at least it's a good interim step, but don't get stuck there. We're aspiring for pure devotional service. That is the goal.
If you're not yet at pure devotional service and you're trying, would that keep you in the mode of goodness?
No, so when you're aspiring for pure devotional service but you're not there, you're a sadhaka. So you're trying there, but you make sure all of your, when you say try, it means sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, right? So sometimes you're not, keep them in the mode of goodness. Whatever non-activities, pure means I'm 24/7. So if I'm, 12/7, 12 hours a day I am, 12 hours I'm not, make sure at least the other 12 hours I'm keeping activities in the mode of goodness, right? When I'm a devotee, but I'm intoxicating. What are you doing? What's the point? That's a very dangerous position to be in. Very, very dangerous position to be in. Right? I'm, a devotee, I'm chanting my rounds, and I'm, gambling. Or I'm, doing these. There's devotional service tinged with these modes. So devotees, we understand the modes because they also help us, make sure our mindset is right. But we don't want to confuse mode of goodness with bhakti. We're Shuddha Sattva. Sattva going with Shuddha Sattva. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Vrinda Koti Krishna Vrinda.
Jai.